Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Like Queen Lisa. And today I am honored to bring my friend um, here with you. He's committed his life to educating people, bringing the truth forward about, uh, well, we'll go into it later. What is science? What are facts? What is propaganda? And he's here to clarify some of those things that are floating around today. And we'll go into some of that in just a second. Be sure to check out all the links and look into the amazing products of micronutrition in New Eden that he has put his life's work into, trying to help bring health to everyone at an affordable cost. So you can check that out in the description below and get your discount using my link for New Eden. We'll be right back with Dr. Reg McDaniel right after this. Thanks for joining us again, Dr. McDaniel.
I'm glad to be here with you.
Yes, this is a very complex topic and situation. There's a lot of misinformation out there. It's definitely a subject that has been politicized. And so I really appreciate you bringing facts to a discussion around science. And I know we've broken this up into two videos. So if you guys haven't watched part one, make sure you go back and check out. If you go to my playlist and hit wellness, you'll see Dr. Reg's last video, RNA technology, part one, and then this is part two. So can you kind of catch us up? I know we had some technical difficulties, so it might be a little bit of a challenge, but kind of tell us your intention for putting these videos out there and with these facts surrounding what's going on right now.
Thank you. I started this series out by saying that I realize that people listening to these lectures don't want to be a biochemist or a geneticist or a molecular biologist. However, there's an awful lot of conflict going on in our nation, in fact, the entire world. In fact, a few weeks ago, I was 87 years old, and I have never been in a period when there is so much conflict and contrast. And I pointed out that what I would do is go into some detail that I don't expect you to remember, but I like to go to the symphony in Dallas or Fort Worth. I can't play an instrument on the stage. I can't read music. However, I can appreciate the music. And I hope that as we've gone through these details, that you can hear and represent how exquisite the engineering and design is in the cells, and try to point out that people that really know the details of what's going on of the science inside of the cells of the human body. Why would 1,000 individuals from 40 different countries sign the Behringer Protest Proclamation against the public politicalization of science, particularly during the coronavirus pandemic, different mandates and things they did people to do that long ago science and medicine has shown that the things they were saying to do are inappropriate or not effective, and forcing people to do this. And of course, the people with the knowledge of protested, like the people of the Behringer Proclamation, which has grown from 1,000 signers to nearly 1 million now, protesting politicalization of science. And so I'm going through the science in hopes that you hear the music of how incredibly designed our cells are under the control of the programming that is written in a computer code in DNA inside of each of our cells. And furthermore, since our first lecture, I hold in my hand an article that relates to what we're talking about. A Nobel laureate by the name of John Clauser, Clauser, who in the year 2022 was recipient of the Nobel Prize. And you got to be at the top of your game in science. And he's a physicist. And it started out that he was asked to speak in Korea, and he pointed out that there's a lot of misinformation. His statement was dangerous misinformation in regard to climate change, which I might add that the Barrington Proclamation, as more people have signed it, have wanted to move from protests about policies of the coronavirus, or China virus, as some people call it, and also about climate change and trying to get everyone to go to solar and wind to generate energy. And he calls it dangerous information. But that's not the end of the story. He had been asked to speak for the United Nations financing for the International Monetary Fund on July the 25th. And when they read what he had said in Korea, they canceled his talk because he had said that the people in power are making not millions, not billions, but $1 trillion mistakes about misinformation about climate change. And just like for the China virus, people set up an agenda and they start looking for data to support their agenda. And anything they can find that supports it, they report it to the national media. And of course, they spread it around. And anything that is contrary or questions their agenda, they suppress it. And just like this Nobel laureate being canceled to speak at the International Monetary Fund because they're part of the agenda that we're talking about in this series. Now, in the first part of it, we pointed out about the politicalization and asked, well, does it make any difference? And we pointed out that in San Antonio, Texas, there was a biology professor that had been teaching for 20 years, and he showed on a screen in one of his lectures the chromosomes laid out that are in the cells of males and females, and that in position 23 of the chromosomes, that a female has 2 X chromosomes, whereas a male only has 1 and has a little vestigial tiny X chromosome, and that's a male. Well, in his audience were 4 individuals brainwashed with the current agenda that's being circulated, and they filed a petition against him, and he lost his job because he was accused of promoting conservative religious dogma, whereas this was science that's been known for decades. And this is happening over and over again. And that's part of why the Barringer Proclamation was issued. And now it has 1 million signers. And we had gotten to the point that in the operation of the cell, I gave you a picture of the cell. And in it, the DNA, which is the code of life, or nucleic acids made with 4 nucleic acids, that is somewhere between, I'd say, 10 and 100 times more powerful than the code in your cell phone or your computer, that runs the biochemistry of life and physiology of life, that in the cell that we had there, that there's a nucleus, and that the DNA is confined to the membrane of the nucleus, and it's much like the reference books in the library. As you well know, at the library, you can't take the reference books out. They've got to be
Mhm.
there for everyone. But you can make a copy on the copy machine of the information in the reference books. And you can take it to your wherever you're studying or working. Well, this is a parallel to what goes on in the cell. It's a complex thing that we went through, that RNA is a working copy made of the DNA, and the RNA uh, can leave the nucleus membrane, and the RNA is in two parts. There is a transport RNA that goes to a little area inside the nucleus called the nucleolus, which we have under red in that thing there. And the transport RNA is processed. And of all things, I want you to appreciate as I say, the music of this. Transport RNA goes out and looks for the nutrient molecules and elements that will be needed on the assembly line inside of every cell. And then when we say an assembly line, it's like a ultra micro factory that makes different compounds from nutrients that operate the biochemistry of life. Well, this transport RNA, of all things, goes into the cytoplasm of the cell and then in the fluid between cells, which is called interstitial space, looking for all the nutrients that will be required on the assembly line, which we essentially show you in a cartoon of how all the compounds, depending on which gene is activated, are made that operates the biochemistry of life. Now, the other part of RNA is called messenger RNA, and it goes to the organelles inside the cell, which we see here, but it is a little easier to understand that it has a one, two, three major steps, an assembly of organelles inside the cytoplasm of the cell. And the first step is the ribosome. The second step is the endoplasmic reticulum. And the third step is the Golgi. These are so small that a light microscope cannot detect them. But with special stains and electron microscopy, you can see these different parts of the assembly line. And when you think about this, I was trying to get across to share with you that some of these people that are protesting the misinformation of the political agenda know all of this. And though I don't expect you to remember it, I want you to appreciate that what goes on in each one of your cells is absolutely incredible. Fact is, in this cartoon of a cell, you will note up there it says mitochondria. Well, these are little bodies inside the cell that generate energy to run the synthesis and the function of our body. And they take particularly glucose and break the bonds between the carbon atoms and transfer it to ATP, adenosine triphosphate, to run all the functions of life. But this little mitochondria is not different in some ways from the central heater and cooler in your house or in your car. And as you well know, like even your hot water heater, when you find water running down the hall, ever so often they rust out and you have to replace them. Would you believe these little mitochondria have in their function essentially like the rusting of your heater or your hot water heater? However, in the design of life, in the chromosomes and on that assembly line, the cell makes anti rust molecules that are called primarily glutathione and superoxide dismutase, which are made on the assembly line that quenches the rusting effect or oxidation and free radical scavengers that are generated by the mitochondria. So we have, not only do our cells generate what we would call, you in your personal experience, you know what rancid peanut butter or rancid butter is like, because the 21% oxygen in the air reacts with the fatty molecules. And when you have them on your plate, you turn up your nose and say, "Shoo, that's rancid." Well, these little mitochondria have this type of process going on, and our body would rust, shall we say, or become oxidized, except in the exquisite design of life, in the genes, these molecules are made to soak up, just like a sponge, these free radicals to keep balance inside the cell. All of this is going on automatically, and this process of balance inside the cell was recognized long ago by scientists who's given the term the father of human physiology, Dr. Hans Selye, and he called this balance of all the activities going on in the cell, not only balance, but homeostasis. It's all balanced. Well, again, I hope you will appreciate this, and that this, knowing all of these facts that are well established science, that this is why knowledgeable scientists and medical people are protesting the agenda of, shall we call, leftist, idealistic thinkers that want to uh, do everything they can to stop our use of energy. For example, our country used to export energy, but now we have to import it. And actually, we're transferring the deleterious activities of oil and gas to other countries rather than deal with it here internally. But we were actually exporting it to other countries, which was financially a benefit to our country. But these people have seized the media and the political activities of Washington, D.C., and many of the state governments to change this. So, with this background, I hope that, and the fact that even since I started putting this together, that this Nobel laureate, John Clauser, has been silenced in his presentation of the International Monetary Fund, canceled, because he pointed out that trillions of dollars of mistakes are being made by very powerful people that are very deleterious to our society. And I'm trying to give you some of the details or the music of the symphony of life to understand that the people that are knowledgeable are pointing their fingers at these agenda driven, politicalized individuals that are promoting false information, and that you need to know about it. And I might add that I have right here a bottle of dietary supplement called New Eden, that if you add this to your diet, that
in front of you.
your brain functions better, and you can cope with this deleterious information is being circulated around, and I think you can think better with every system of the body works better with more comprehensive nutrition, which is the source of. So, with that, let's continue with the lecture.
Okay. I want to just give one quick bit of an update, or a little bit of current news that is a little something positive. We do have some freedom fighters and truth warriors out there, just like Dr. McDaniel, fighting for us. And Rand Paul today sent evidence for a criminal referral for Anthony Fauci to the U.S. Attorney in D.C. So we will see if those, he referred criminal charges for lying about COVID to the U.S. Attorney in D.C. So we'll see how that plays out. I know a lot of people don't have a lot of faith in our current system, but I think we still have a process, and we do the right things, and we hold those in those positions accountable. through that process is.
Could I make a comment about
Yes, please
please?
do. Please do.
Uh, a lot of people know about the Freedom of Information Act, that if you go through the process, you can find out where the government is doing things and sending money. And there were projects and research projects that they were sending to universities and academic centers, research places in the United States for
California.
biological warfare,
Mhm.
making organisms much more potent than they are in nature to try to use in warfare. And this became found out by the Freedom of Information Act. So the federal government got, they're not dumb. They decided, let's go even to foreign countries and do it kind of off books. And actually, they accused Dr. Fauci of spending money to the Wuhan laboratories for research on different animal viruses that they could make them more virulent and dangerous. And he denied that they sent any money. Well, under the Freedom of Information Act, they found out that he was just absolutely lying to the
Mhm.
public. And again, some of these mandates that came out of Washington to us, that when I was much younger, we had tuberculosis clinics all over the country. And they had found out if a person has tuberculosis, if they wear a mask, they don't spread it to others. And that the only reason that the doctors and nurses wear a mask when they're doing procedures is that they don't want to take any of their organisms and infect the patient and make them even sicker. And so, this idea of everyone wearing a mask, even if they don't have symptoms, that Fauci was promoting,
Mhm.
even sometimes he was saying wear two masks, if you remember, is absolutely fallacious
Mhm.
and has no scientific backing. And yet, with his position in Washington and his position on the advisory staff to the White House, he was passing on nonsense, or this politicalization of scientific information that we're trying to address by informing people of the details of how our cells work under the control of our genes, and how absolutely marvelous. Fact is, the scriptures say that we're marvelously and wondrously made. Well, I can tell you that science and medicine has found out, as they keep doing more and more research, that our bodies are far more wondrously and marvelously made than science and medicine ever thought when they started out with this research. And we're going into that. And I don't expect you to remember it, but I do hope that you hear the absolute music, as I say, as you get when you go to the symphony, of how marvelously our bodies are made, and it all starts with how the cells function. So let's go on.
Absolutely. So we have about 25 minutes more of this video explanation, and then we'll bring Dr. McDaniel back on. If you guys have questions for him, please put them in the live chat in all caps, and I will collect those to ask him or address at the end of the video. Um, let me get this started.
And then instructions of how to take over the ribosome, the endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi, and get the cell to start making viral proteins and viral material instead of that which originally the cell was made for. Well, these whole virus vaccines, which were much more effective and actually prevented infections, also had a low incidence of actually causing the disease. For example, smallpox, which has an attenuated virus, in a certain percent, very low percentage, actually the people get the smallpox. And there's even a lower percentage that can die from actually receiving the vaccine. So the idea was to take a RNA segment that codes for how to make the protein antigen that's in the vaccine, and never expose the host or the individual to the entire vaccine complement. And that way you would avoid anybody ever getting the disease, because you just make that one segment. Well, unfortunately, the fragment of the virus that the RNA is made from doesn't give you complete protection. And in fact, as we'll get into here in a minute, there's something else at work that caused a paper to be published that explained to me that I'm trying to get across to you on why this vaccine has been a catastrophe. It's not a vaccine, it's a shot. And I was at this slide saying this is the reason 15,000 scientists signed the Barrington political protest. That what I've been trying to share with you, these scientists know and understand, and we will soon get to something that is not generally known even among very well-informed scientists. And the paper that I'm talking about was published in Epic Times, May 3rd to the 9th edition. And it was entitled "The Trojan Horse in RNA-Based, quote, Vaccines," because we got it in quotes because it's a shot, it's not a vaccine. And the author was Kraus Stigler, a molecular biologist for 30 years at the University of Gießen, had to go outside the United States and out of the political arena to get someone to really share this. And he had help from Andres Schnapf, Schnaph, who's also a molecular biologist in Germany, to try to explain to those that are interested why people would sign the Barrington protest and what the basis of it is. And they're not only what I've been showing you exists in each cell in your body, the assembly line and the information being brought in by your genes, and that your genes stay in the nucleus but makes a working copy that's sent to the assembly line. But there's an audit step biochemically that when the RNA is made from the DNA, it basically says, is this correct and complementary, and is it genomic? And what we mean by genomic is that is the RNA in its complementary sequence that I was showing you in one of the slides, like it was either in the maternal or the paternal genes. In other words, did it come from genetics from the mother and the father, that the RNA is properly made before it goes out of the nucleus to be used on the assembly line or to look for the nutrients. Now, when the transport RNA is made, that it's going to dictate how the messenger RNA utilizes the amino acids. There is a second audit step. And what this audit step in the nucleolus is this protein that's going to be made a foreign protein, or is it genomic? If it's genomic, it progresses to make that protein because it came from the mother and father genetic history. But if it's a foreign protein, it stops right there. It does not dictate the production of the antigen protein that would be hopefully effective to make antibodies against the virus. And by this, the various products that you hear that different companies make, they add different things to this RNA shot to try to fool the immune system that though this is viral or foreign protein, that it will go ahead and make it, and it seems to confuse the cell rather than produce the what you want. So the first step is called transcription, where DNA is by complementary amino acid sequencing makes the RNA, and there's this audit step. Is it correctly made, and is it genomic like it comes from the mother and father? And then the RNA is divided into two things, the little m RNA, which is the messenger RNA that gives the assembly line the instructions of how to hook the nutrients together to make properly the bioactive compounds that run the biochemistry of life. And then the transport RNA that goes out and seeks nutrients and brings them into the assembly line, the proper nutrients at the proper time. And this is called translation to make protein. And there is an audit step here, which these molecular biologists are pointing out, which again says, is this protein going to be a protein that came from the mother and the father and was inherited? Or is this a foreign protein like from a virus? And at that point, if it's foreign, the production of the protein is blocked. And this is the problem with the RNA shot. And it's causing thing. And I might add that the federal government has a adverse reaction website. And the first time I was shown it about 2 years ago, there were at least 1,000 deaths from the RNA shot that was supposed to be a vaccine. Well, I was aware that if a patient is admitted to the hospital, that they say they have the coronavirus, that they try to support them to get over this. But if they have to go to ventilatory assist, that the lungs are affected so bad that you've got to have assist, the payment from the Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance companies go from about $15,000 to about $35,000. So there's an incentive to say this person's got ventilatory, very bad coronavirus. Well, with this in mind, I thought possibly this website of adverse reactions was padded. So I went into the individual patient stories of the so-called deaths from this RNA shot. And I was surprised to see that because they put a priority on people that were working in emergency rooms, nurses and physicians, many of them having to work double shifts to try to handle the volume of people coming in with the pandemic. And so they were among the first to get the new RNA shot. Well, they gave them the shot, and the history was they never came back to work. Their health collapsed on them, and they died in about 2 weeks and never came back to work. Over and over again, this was what was in this adverse reaction site. And now it's several thousand deaths have been caused. And you don't read about that in the national media because this does not fit the politicalization that the RNA shot is a great success and that everybody ought to have it. And if you don't have it, you can't fly on an airplane. You can't go into certain countries. You can't go to certain places unless you can prove that you've had the RNA shot. Well, this is part of what the protest of the scientists with the know of what I've been trying to share with you, which is, as I admit, is awfully detailed science, but I hope you appreciate the music of the details of how incredibly detailed our cells work and why the RNA shot has been a catastrophe, that it doesn't work as the idea was for it to work. And it's been a major problem. And in fact, the products made that they add different products to the RNA shot to try to fool the immune system to go ahead and make some of this foreign protein, that there are white cells called thymic white cells, identify these cells producing the viral protein that are unhealthy, and the white cells attempt to destroy them. And there's a process among our cells that it's genetic already called apoptosis, the activation of a program for destruction of these T cell white cells to destroy the efforts of the RNA technology to get the immune system to make this foreign antigen, which the cell is set up to reject. Then in the B lymphocytes, which are primarily in the lymph nodes and make antibodies, don't properly comprehend what is happening immunologically, and they don't bind to coronavirus cells, which is the purpose of the vaccine. And this is why the CDC had to change the definition to match the political agenda. And as I said before, for decades, a vaccine was defined as a substance that prevents an infection. The new definition is a vaccine is a substance that stimulates the immune system. And this authors from Germany try to point out it confuses the immune system, and it's a catastrophe. Now, one of the reasons I know something about this is that in the early days of the research for the active ingredient in aloe leaf gel, 7 patients from 7 different states contacted a little company about 10 minutes from my office in Grand Prairie and said, I was on my deathbed waiting to die from this new disease of unknown cause and no treatment called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or reduced to, let's call it as AIDS. Well, in an effort to try to do something in a hurry, there was a research virologist by the name of Jasmine Cologne, PhD, at the Southern Research Institute in Alabama. And she was quite famous because the National Institutes of Health sent her about 350 different compounds to search for something that would attack the AIDS virus. And she came up with AZT, which is a variation of thymidine that interferes with the metabolism of the AIDS virus. And in fact, it would stop the AIDS virus, but she did not recommend AZT because it was so toxic, it killed the cells that the virus was living in. And so even though, well, what was happening in the public sector is that AIDS patients were chaining themselves and using handcuffs to the lead into the CDC and the FDA saying, you're trying to kill us. And so the Reagan White House said, give us something and give us something now that's effective against the AIDS virus. And so they came out with AZT. Well, a research project was done in over 300 patients in Europe, and they were able to show that patients that got absolutely nothing for treatment live longer and had a better quality of life than if you gave them AZT. And it rapidly, just like Jasbir Cologne's research showed, was dropped in their other things. However, Dr. Cologne was in graduate school with one of the professors at Texas A&M, which was the #1 academic institution working on contract for Carrington Laboratories. And through this person at Texas A&M, we were able to get the active ingredient from the aloe, ace-mannin, or acetylated mannose, to Jasbir Cologne, which she went through all the experiments that she did for the NIH to find AZT. And lo and behold, this is data from that she published in the journal Molecular Biothermy, Volume 3, in September 1991. And you can see that in the table that there was 98% inhibition of the HIV-1 virus in the RNA step that we have outlined before, that the active ingredient from the aloe was very effective, and it did not kill the cells that it was in. And this to the right is a graphic presentation of what you see in the data over the left, but the control virus proliferates extremely well. But if there's presence of acetylated mannose, that the production of the virus is greatly reduced. And only because of this did I feel like that I could begin to try to share with you why so many scientists and medical people are protesting the politicalization of science. And Dr. Cologne, in her paper that was published, in A here, you have the cells in culture, that there's no virus, and you just see a uniform cell distribution. If you introduce the virus, you see these blotchy areas that are called syncytia, where the cells fuse together, which is viral cytopathology, and it alters the cells. And however, if you add some of the active ingredient from the aloe, which was done in the cultures in number E, note again how nice and uniform the cells are. And there was a 98% plus inhibition of virus, because in the audit step in the RNA processing in the nucleolus, the virus is identified as a foreign protein, and so virus particles are not made. And this is an enhancement of the normal function of RNA in the nucleolus that is the basis for why the aloe oligosaccharide was effective against the AIDS virus. Now, Carrington Laboratory tried to use this data to advance it in the new drug approval process. However, they found out, just like Jasbir Cologne showed, that there was absolutely no toxicity of the active ingredient of the aloe against cells. Well, the father of pharmacology, Western pharmacology, was named Paracelsus, the most noted person in world history from Switzerland. His most famous statement was, all drugs or all pharmaceuticals are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose, end of quote. Well, the active ingredient from the aloe would not kill any mice, rats, cats, dogs, and finally even in undergraduate students at the University of Texas. And sterile IV ran into medical students in Houston. And that is pharmaceutical heresy. No toxicity. We could not give them an LD50. Well, how much of this stuff does it take to kill half the animals, and how much of it, the LD100, to kill all of them? There must be a wide window, or you can't proceed to the second step because, quote unquote, all drugs are poisons. Because drugs interfere with the engineering and design of life to reduce symptoms, but do not address the cause for the symptoms or problems that the patient's having. However, the genes are programs to try to move the biochemistry and the physiology to the normal zone or homeostatic zone, as it is called by the father of human physiology, Dr. Hans Selye. This balance within cells is called homeostasis, which you see in slide E here, that the virus was not transcribed to make the viral protein because of the audit step that's in the nucleolus in the formation of transport RNA, where it transcribes into making the protein. The other thing is that we found out that it did not matter if a person had a deviation from normal that was physical, which we frequently call diseases or syndromes for the profiles, so we can discuss these deviations from normal in medicine. Also, that we found out it didn't matter if it was a physical illness, a mental, or an emotional illness, that by adding this to the diet, there was a significant incidence of improvement in humans. This, again, is pharmaceutical and medical heresy. I did not realize it before getting involved in this research, that medicine is organized one drug, one disease. You may not have focused on this any more than I did, but we don't use antibiotics to treat depression. We don't use psychotropic drugs to treat pneumonia. In fact, as in antibiotics, it is so one drug, one disease oriented that it depends on where you find the infectious organism, you use a different pharmaceutical drug. And so we had two strikes against the application to make the active ingredient from the aloe vera plant, acetylated mannose, a drug, because it was non-toxic and everything improved when you added it to the diet. Well, fortunately, in 1994, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act was passed, and we realized with all the scientific data that 12 different academic institutions had generated, that we did not have a pharmaceutical that acts or has a mechanism of action like a pharmaceutical, that it is utilized by the cells to move to the homeostatic or normal zone to support the normal biochemistry design and engineering of how cells work. And so if I had not been involved in the 1990s with research with Dr. Cologne, I don't think I could even begin to understand or appreciate what I've been trying to share with you about why there is so much confusion, protest, and upset in the scientific and medical and public sector, and the fact that the media and the predominant political party has politicized science to follow their agenda. And I hope with this presentation, though you may not have followed all the details, that if nothing else, you appreciate the incredible engineering and design of how cells work and how it can be used for good to improve and support an improvement in health. So with that, I'll bring it to end and hope that this has gotten across to you, much like when I go to the symphony. I can't play the music, I can't read the music, but I can understand and appreciate the beautiful outcome of what is presented by the symphony orchestra. And I hope you see the beauty and the symphony of life and how the genes are organized and run the biochemistry and the assembly line of life. Thank you. That's the end of this lecture.
I'm muted again. Thank you so much for that, Dr. McDaniel. That resonates truth. And when you're talking about the symphony of, that maybe people can't understand all the details of those facts that you just presented, but they can listen to it and hopefully hear the music of truth, and that resonates truth to them. I think that is that definitely resonated truth. It sounded that like the music of truth to me, and a lot of the things that I'm hearing and seeing. We started the video talking about kind of your intentions with bringing this forward and helping people unpack or understand how these science is being politicized and facts are being turned into propaganda. And we did make a statement about some of that being corrected. There's also you mentioned in the video about the payments or incentivizing of treatment for people in care or in hospitals, and that's another thing where science or medicine is being messed with these middlemen, somebody getting in between the facts or the what we used to call science. And I found this today. It was a program. It's a vaccine provider incentive program. This went out to providers to give them incentive to pay them more if they had different dates, that if they had 30% up to 75% to get bonuses based on the percentage of their vaccinated members of their clients, of their patients. This is just astounding to me that the bonuses would be and the incentives would be there. Either it's good for a person and they need it or not. Why would something like this just seems really sinister to me.
What I have in my hand is the results of now 37 years of research in this area, that this returns to the modern diet, what we used to get in the family garden and orchard, growing on soil that had 70 trace minerals in it. And we allowed the produce to ripen on the vine so that the genes in the plant could put the nutrients into the fruits and vegetables that our cells call for in cellular synthesis. Well, it took me a long time to realize that in the 1940s, when I was young, that there were just, about 6 weeks that you could have certain fruits and vegetables, because all the grocery stores were owned by a local family, and they had very few things that were more than, say, 50 miles from the grocery store. And so we could get things only during the growing season locally. Well, now we have national grocery chains and we have agribusiness, and lo and behold, 12 months of the year, you can get watermelon, cantaloupes, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries. How do they do this? Well, they follow the growth zones across the country, and to have a shipping life and a shelf life for commercial reasons, they pick it green when the principal molecule is chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is an incredible molecule that captures energy from the sun and puts it into the produce that our mitochondria eventually transfer to ATP in the digestive and the process that I showed you about the cells. Well, what we have here is vine ripened fruits and vegetables that are freeze dried and have the nutrients that your genes call for. And this improves your health. Things heal better. It protects your it supports your immune system to keep you from getting different diseases. Fact is, the Dietary Supplement and Health Education Act of '94 had a little preamble attached to it, which is not the law, but it only is a statement of why they had hearings and considered the draft of legislation. It's not law. But the first paragraph said that science and medicine has demonstrated or proven that optimal nutrition, which I hold in my hand, is essential for good health, to prevent disease, and to restore health. And so that's why I've focused on this now for 37 years, trying to restore to the diet what will optimize the biochemistry and physiology for all the systems of your body. And we kind of went through this process that all the cells are. I recently said in an article that there are about 30 trillion cells in the body, and there are about 226 different kinds of cells, and all of them have to have nutrition. And this is a step toward optimizing the nutrition, and it's a reason that the FDA kicked Carrington out. It's non-toxic. You can't kill anything with it. It supports the engineering and design of life, which I was been trying to share with people during this lecture. And the next thing is that it's economical, so like pennies versus dollars when you compare this to a new pharmaceutical that's in patent. And of course, the pharmaceuticals interfere with engineering design of life to reduce symptoms. And the ideal pharmaceutical, if you quit taking it, your symptoms come back. That's good business. And I'm in favor of good business and profits and innovation, but I'm not in favor of exploitation, which in your medical training and the sickness industry has the attitude of quote unquote, the cost be damned, end of quote. And the United States, in surveys done by the World Health Organization, is number one in healthcare costs, but no better than surveys of all the member nations of the United Nations, no better than 35th in regard to the health status and quality of life of the citizens. And this is a means to change those terrible figures. And I hope that these lectures that I've been sharing with you are beginning to penetrate the mind of, unfortunately, we're brainwashed in that to think that there is a drug, a pharmaceutical for any problem you've got. Well, these drugs interfere with engineering and design of life. And as Paracelsus said, all drugs are poisons. And this is not poisonous. It supports engineering and design of life. Thank you.
Yes, I'm just so grateful. And I'm honored to be a part of sharing your life's work. And you're just so passionate about helping people in the community with this and other aspects of getting the truth out there. And I know we're taking some risk of sharing this information because it is such a highly censored topic, but we're just asking the community to come alongside of us and give us a like on the video, share the video, and to spread this truth out there as much as you can, and help get people this nutrition that they need that will help their bodies use that natural design of life to heal themselves. So I really appreciate you, Dr. McDaniel. We'll look forward to our next video in a couple weeks. And everyone, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to Dr. McDaniel or to myself, and I can pass those along. But if you use my link, you can go straight to the website And there's an opportunity. The best deal is to always use the link and to sign up for a 6-month subscription auto ship. And that way you get the free probiotic and a discount on New Eden. And you can also put in a message during the time of your order, telling what some of your deviations from health might be, and they might have some research or information to share with you. They are just really truth seekers there at Wellness Quest and want to get as much information in your hand as they can. You can also, there's an opportunity on the website where you can reach out to Dr. McDaniel directly if you have questions, and he's very generous with his time and knowledge. And so I am forever grateful for that as well. So we will see everyone next time, and be blessed, my friend, Mr. Dr. McDaniel. I call you Mr. Reg, Dr. Reg. It'll be great to see you again next time. I'm looking forward to our next time together.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys. Give us a like, share the video.